What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we got him right in the zone. We are here with Paige Hamilton of Helmet. Thanks for being here today, man. It's great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alex.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for giving us this great new live album, Live and Rare, coming out. The first question I want to ask you, sorry if I'm a little speculatory, but could this maybe serve as like something to hold the fans over while we wait for a follow-up to Dead to the World?
Yeah, that, and we put out, we released a fan-only a little box of 4 7-inches, the cover songs. So um, we called it Move On after the Bowie cover we did, the Bowie song Move On from Lodger. It's one of my all-time favorite underrated songs ever. And so those two things in the last, I think we released the cover box, I want to say in August, maybe something like that. And it was, there's something the label worked out to fans only, and I'm hoping we'll digitally release it eventually. So
Yeah.
those two things, yeah.
Yeah. Being that this, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first live album we're getting from Helmet, and being that you guys have been around since 1989, what took so long for a live album?
Well, we've always released like songs. We put like on the Japanese issue like a couple of live songs, or I'm trying to think what else. These cover songs, 3 of them, the B-sides are live songs, I believe, from a Minneapolis show we did. But I just never, it kind of never got around to it. We had these tapes lying around in the locker in Jersey, and then in North Hollywood when I moved out here, and I thought, God, I want to hear what's on these. And our guy Toshi Kasai, who we do a lot of work with, engineer, producer here in LA, kind of rescued them. We had to bake the tapes, which means, because it was a 2-inch 16-track recording, it's done at CBGB's, the A side, and the tapes were old and they get deteriorated. So you bake them, and that's so you can digitize the material. And then the Big Day Out show was 2-inch 24-track, the Australian show. So I'm not sure if they had to bake that. We sent it to the label, which is in Hamburg, Ear Music, Adele, and yeah, it was a fun process. It was really, it's the side A is like essentially year 0. It was a show in the fall, and I think the band at that point had been together less than a year. I may be lying. Maybe we've been together a year. 90. It came out, it was from 90, right? The date. I forgot the date.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty early on.
Yeah.
I think I joked in the liner notes, Peter was probably still wearing Beetle boots and skinny jeans, and Henry might have still had dreadlocks. So
listening to that, it makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I'm -3 again. So
yeah, I know. It was, yeah, it was pretty high energy back then. There was not a lot of banter, and that was, that's, I still prefer that when we do festivals and radio shows with all these cock rock bands and stuff, and they're all like, everybody's like, make some fucking noise. Hey, does everybody feel all right? Show me your middle finger. And I'm just like, shut up, man. Ozzy can say that, you can't.
Yeah.
So
and
I just get the Seether guy, the singer, said to me after this show in Arkansas, this radio show, he's like, God, that was so cool. You guys, you didn't say a word. You just came up and played 10 songs and said goodbye, good night. I'm like, yeah, I mean, we got half an hour. Everybody's playing a half an hour. They don't need to hear, fucking hype man. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But the songs on there were before Strap It On was released. So I think we did Born Annoying. I can't remember. We had to whittle it down so we could get it on one 12-inch, record. So I probably had to remove some things, some stuff. I can't remember what exactly. But yeah, it's fun. It was fun. It's cool to do.
And there's a lot to.
Can I drink beer?
Absolutely.
Will this?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are we on camera, or is it audio?
It's camera.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. Sorry, I'm gonna have a sip of my lunchtime Budweiser.
Hey,
sorry.
maybe you'll get a supplement, or maybe you'll get like a sponsor from them to do that. That has happened before. So.
I wish, we have. Do you see the helmet beer we have?
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't drink, so I can't have it at the moment. But
oh, oh,
feel free to
you're
plug
smart.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Nope.
These we did these. They did a couple of artwork versions. This is the one we ended up releasing. It's obviously the Betty vibe. I call it the Betty Blue, like the lowercase logo, which looked really good. They had done a Meantime version too, uh, but I didn't, didn't think it looked as cool. So,
Being that Unsung was my first Helmet song that I've ever heard, that would be the one that I would taste first.
oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's also a lot to celebrate with Helmet, which I think is great for this live album because last year was the 30-year anniversary of the debut, Strap It On, and then next year is the 30-year anniversary of Meantime. So, like, do you think that we're probably going to get, can we maybe get, like, when shows don't happen as sporadically anymore and touring could happen consistently, we could get, like, a celebration, like maybe an anniversary tour of Meantime and or Strap It On?
We did a Meantime 20th and we did a Betty 20th, and then I was like, okay, enough of that. If we did anything, I think it might, Aftertaste, maybe when that album is 30 years old, I'd like to do, because that's a neglected album, and I love the band can play every song on there. I can play and sing all songs except for Insatiable, and I still because it's just a bitch to play that riff and sing. So it would be a thing like I do on You Borrowed, I believe, where I just sing until the end of the song. No guitar, but that I just love that album, and it was a kind of a turning point for me as a writer and as a producer, having an actual co-producer in Sardi. Not that Wharton and Albini and all these other people didn't contribute, but on that album, like Sardi was very actively co-produced with me. So, and Butch, we worked with Butch. He was very active as well. But we only did two songs. We did Milk Toast and the song for the Led Zeppelin tribute. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from all these guys. I just produced an album in in Boise, Idaho, for a band called Basement. And it's funny that I've been doing this for so long, and just you think about where you sort of uh, gain all this knowledge, and it's just like, yeah, it's 35 years of having a band, or 33 or whatever it is at this point. So
Yeah.
making albums and playing on albums and stuff. So
Has
yeah, that,
Has your songwriting process like maybe changed throughout your career? Like, have you always taken a new approach to every single album, or was there kind of like a formula that applied to every album from Strap It On to Dead to the World?
it's definitely changed, but that said, much like Helmet, if I'm writing for a TV show or a movie, or like I have a piece I'm writing for the Christian Brothers High School in Memphis. That's the oldest high school orchestra in the country, and they turn 150 in 2023.
Wow.
That writing process is obviously different because there's no lyrics, there's no words. I'm not singing. In Helmet, I still am an old-fashioned, my notebooks they're over there, but goober that uses notebooks. It's a process of distilling ideas. I keep relatively copious notes when I'm traveling or just watching a football game and a commercial comes on and there's some medication for your dick or for your mood or whatever it is, and that stuff cracks me up because it's just nonstop. And so I write things down, and then when I'm working on a song, if I have a melodic shape or a rhythmic shape in my head, I might use, much like every writer does. Like I've heard Paul McCartney talking about Yesterday was scrambled eggs for 2 months before he came up with Yesterday, and that's not uncommon. But then I might write a version in a notebook, and then I move to another notebook and I kind of distill that, and I get the good ideas, and I go, that's not working. And so it's I might have, when I'm writing, I'll be like, have a notebook here and kind of spread around the room. I put a music stand with me, and but as far as the music is concerned, it starts with an idea away from the instrument usually. So I hear something in my head, And that's what the beauty of kind of the drop tuning provided for me. I was walking home one night from a show in New York City up Avenue A, and I got this riff in my head, and I sat down at 4 a.m, and the note I was hearing, the low note, was off the guitar. It was a D. So I was like, and you know, it was like, you know, it was in sorry, it's repetition. So it was that. And the lowest note on a standard tuned guitar is an E. It's a whole step higher. So I was like, oh, I'll drop this low string. And all of a sudden I wasn't, you know, just playing hackneyed AC/DC riffs, you know, which AC/DC lays so perfectly on the guitar. And I'm like, God, I keep, you know, or Husker Du. I'm like kind of getting this Husker, you know, early stuff like Shirley MacLaine and, you know, was a kind of, I think, Husker Du inspired vibe, you know, and you know, then I was kind of experimenting with time signatures like A Gay Should It Go, where I was like one instrument in 3, 1 in 4, and 1 in 5. It's just superimposing things like that. But it's much less of an intellectual, you know, process now, unless I'm doing overdubs and something like Milk Toast. I'm going to do a piece on Milk Toast on my YouTube channel, because so many of my students since the pandemic have asked me to teach them songs. And I did one on Blacktop because it's that cool feel, 3 against 4, you know, the intro, gung, 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 you know, it's a dotted quarter feel. And so I think when you hear stuff, it's not, I've worked with so many bands, you know, and when you're just kind of throwing ideas back and forth and like, oh, I could do this or do that, it's pretty unproductive. You know, you might be inspired for a couple of years and be able to get some material, but for 30 plus years, you better, you know, be able to sort of channel some kind of, you know, musical inspiration from another place. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the Dead to the World stuff came together like that, you know. And I might pick up a guitar and go, wow, that sounds really cool. And I get a melodic idea, and then I let the melody push the chords or the riff or whatever it is. So it's I say, you know, for a long-winded answer, yes, it's different, and no, it's not different at all. It's, you know, there's still, I mean, Helmet is, you know, I always had envisioned 2 guitars, bass, drums, and a guy singing. As we kind of progressed, and I added some backing vocals on Aftertaste. But nobody in the band sang, you know, until Chris Traynor got in. But when my current band, all 3 other guys sing, so I can do a lot of different stuff. So it's kind of just expanded my, you know, orchestration possibilities, which is fun for me, you know. But I'm still keeping it within that format. I'm not trying to be like, okay, I mean, right now anyway, my manager wants me to do an orchestral Helmet album, and I'm like, that should be interesting, because the Helmet chords are very open voicings, meaning, you know, there's a you know, if you're playing a G chord, there'd be like a root, a fifth, an octave above that, a sharp 11, a major 7, and an open E would give you a 6 or a 13. And that stuff with strings will sound amazing, orchestrated. So, but the Helmet albums are going to continue to be like, you know, what I can perform on stage with 4 of us. And that's kind of always been a little bit of the goal. I mean, there are exceptions like LA Water, that was, you know, in a different tuning. I used a baritone down to B, drop B, and I used some strings and things. But I mean, on Strap It On, Wharton had a primitive sampler back in 1990 or whatever, and I sampled my voice for that drone, you know, when it's that D, that pitch that drones through the, you know, what's the best for me, you know, that pitch right there, that, you know. And so it's under there. So there's like, you know, there's synthesizers on Strap It On. So, you know,
well, I've always thought, like, a lot of people have associated Helmet with being punk, and you guys definitely had like that punk rock hardcore vibe behind it. I've heard many, hardcore bands reference Helmet as an inspiration and stuff. But I've always said that Helmet was almost like the punk rock of punk. Like, I've heard Helmet. The first time I heard Helmet, I was a late bloomer with, getting on board with Helmet. Like, but the first time I heard Helmet was unsung, and they were playing on SiriusXM Octane, like the same channel where they put on like Puddle of Mud or Shinedown. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like Helmet has always been the punk rock of punk rock. I thought you had things that made it different, but you still had the chord progressions and the sort of fuck you mentality that made punk in a way.
Yeah, I mean, my interpretation of punk was that it was individuality. You were supposed to try to do something that was unique to you, not mimic what was going on or like the flavor of the moment, And there was, even in New York City, as great as it was back then, 89, 90, 91, you could see people that were like, okay, Sonic Youth is the biggest band in New York, so we're going to kind of look like them and do their kind of thing. And I thought, I love Sonic Youth, still friendly with Thurston, saw him a couple years ago in Chile, and it was great. And they were an influence, but I don't want to redo what they're doing, So to me, it was punk is, because I'm a jazz nut, Charlie Parker is punk. To me, he was like, him and Dizzy they were like, fuck this, we're gonna superimpose these chord changes over these jazz standards and do all these substitutions and expand this music. And a great genius like Louis Armstrong was like, it sounds like Chinese music. That's what a quote. He hated it, but he didn't get it. He just didn't dig where they're coming from. To me, like, I mean, when ESP contacted Henry, our bass player, was friends with Baker Rourke from ESP, and he said, hey, they really like what you're doing. They want you to come in and talk to you. And that's when I got this guitar, and I it was like, no downtown noise rock, punk rock band in New York City was playing a reverse, headstock, magenta metal guitar with a Floyd Rose on it. I played 5 or 6 guitars and it sounded incredible, just not plugged in. I could tell it. It was a really nice chunk of wood. And then I remember some people just going like, in Long Beach, Kirk KRK from Flipside Magazine, he's like, what the fuck is that? And I go, that's my new guitar. People were put off by it, and I'm like, yeah, like, that tough shit. It sounds amazing and it plays amazing, and it's it's part of me, being able to do what I love doing and that I couldn't get out of a G&L or a Les Paul. Yeah. I have the G&L and I have the Les Paul. I can probably see, I don't know what's over there. Yeah, there's 2 G&Ls on the wall, and a couple of things. But this guitar just was a revelation for me. It was so resonant and open, and I could do some of the feedback stuff that I've been trying to do that I, learned from Robert Poss and Band of Susans, and then later Casper Botsman and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, the punk thing, it's interesting because we've played on the Warped Tour, which is punk, emo, a lot of really emo-y kind of stuff, and emo, screamo, whatever you want to call it. And we've also played metal festivals like Rock on Ring and Rock on Park with, everyone from Sabbath to, who's been on those festivals, like,
Slayer.
Motley Crue, Manson, which, more of a metal kind of vibe. And I just, I've heard so many monikers. Oh, we are post-hardcore. Oh, we are industrial metal. Oh, we are alternative metal. Oh, we are, metal. We got a Grammy nomination for best metal performance. I'm like, we're metal? God, I think metalheads, cringe,
Well, if you make a metalhead cringe, I love it when bands just make metalheads, like metal elitists, just cringe. So that's why I've always said Helmet is the punk rock. And look, people have labeled you all those things. You said, you know what I just call you? I just call you Helmet. That's what I call you. Because I can't think. Sure, like people have compared Helmet to a band like Bad Religion, sure, or they've compared you to like, some more punk rock. But in the end, like, I see things that would make punk rocks cringe, and then I see stuff in your music that would make the radio-friendly crowd shit their pants. So I think all in all, in the end, it's just Helmet. And I have 2 more questions for you. But when it comes to the lyricism, has there ever been a time where maybe a lyrical idea could dictate the direction of the sound for Helmet in a way? Or have you always needed music before any lyrics came into play?
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think about like that. So you're talking about tone, mood, like do the lyrics
Yeah.
would say like, well, that is a really poignant, heartfelt line, or I remember how emotionally I felt when I was writing a song like "See You Dead." Okay, uh, it was about a relationship that I ended. The poor girl, she said, Paige, I would have thought breaking up with me was enough, but you had to write these nasty songs. I'm like, well, and it was more my ego because she had gotten with somebody like 2 weeks after we broke up.
Hmm.
And I was like, what the fuck? And so there was anger, but sadness, and like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should, and but the rhythmic sort of, when I got that rhythmic idea, like London Calling idea, that dun 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 dun, that's kind of the inspiration, London Calling. And I just love that kind of stomp vibe. And I got the melody just like that, and the words just started coming out. And I was like, well, that's a good subject matter. So I think they they go kind of hand in hand. Like you get a musical idea, and a lyrical idea, and the words are going to have a rhythm to them. And what I preach when I'm producing or working with the School of Rock kids, I have a songwriting class that's really really fun. I worked with the School of Rock All Stars in the U.S. And I had 7 songwriters that were recording with the best players all around the country and Mexico and Brazil. Um, and is it singable? And that's kind of part of. And Helmet was when I my goal. I had this weird uh, attitude. After Strap It On, like when I was writing Meantime, I got in this thing where I had been around enough musicians and bands and singer songwriters and stuff in New York, and I was like, this fucking pretentious I'm a singer songwriter thing to me was like, well, okay, I'm an anti singer songwriter. I'm an anti songwriter. So I was trying to develop a vocabulary that had no narrative, that was sort of like a collection of images and stuff. And as I got Meantime and Betty, and then started listening to Elvis Costello, which my ex-wife she really turned me on to him, and a deeper dive into Bowie. I knew Bowie, but I didn't have. But she was a huge fan of both those guys, and I started kind of coming back down to earth a little bit, because some of it really worked. The Meantime and Betty stuff. Some of it's very weird, and I'm like, what was I thinking on that line? I mean, there's a line in Meantime, I could hold your feet down and get to know for a while, and that was a spiritual thing to me. It was like I had a visual image of someone floating over the Oregon coast with their ego, and I was trying to pull them back down to earth, and was me basically. And so you get these ideas, and refer there's refer to something and refers to something is buried under layers of. And I look back on it, I was in a relationship that was not open as far as our communication, so I felt like I had to hide things, and that included my writing. And those songs came out because of that relationship. And as I got out of that relationship, I started writing more narrative stuff. So, another long-winded, yes, sometimes the words guide the sound, but it's the rhythm. It's a melody, harmony, rhythm, form, or the structure, and the text, the words. Those elements exist in all music that has words, whether it's opera or jazz tunes, Nat King Cole, or the Gang of Four. So it's it's a matter of how you want to shape things.
It almost seems like you take inspiration from multiple sources, because like you have like a way of addressing certain things, but then you also have a way of escaping certain things. You have a way of being both very literal and a way of being very metaphorical. I mean, just like inspiration just like strike out of the blue, like when you least expect it? Or do you almost like have a usual place where like you go to cultivate ideas, whether it is for Helmet or for your production or anything like that?
Kind of both. I've encouraged so many of my students to keep little notebooks around and write stuff down, and you get an idea or you see something, and I find it funny. I'm kind of always looking for for humor a little bit and stuff. Even if you've been through something painful, I can't write about it right then. I have to step back. I might take 6 months. It might take a year or whatever, so I can look at it in a, with some humor, because I'm keeping in mind you're writing a song. You're not doing brain surgery. You're not saving anybody's life. You're writing a song, and um, there are times when just lines will come to me. I'm like, I was talking to some friends that worked at Interscope there that were playing the Aftertaste record at I think it was like Gwen Stefani's baby shower or something, and they were like, "You guys are listening to Helmet? Like, that's cool." And they're like, Debbie, who worked there, is this friend of mine, and she was like, "I'd rather be insulted by you than someone I respect." And I'm like, I don't know, just came to me, and I was like, yes, that's great. And being around, having Sardi as a co-producer in that stuff was really great as well, because he's such a great lyricist himself in Bark Market, and that kind of lit a fire under my ass, and that's when I kind of started back into my ex-wife's father, my ex-father-in-law, who I love, said, well, all you do is write fuck you songs. They're good fuck you songs, but they're still just fuck you songs. So I'm like, everybody's got to be good at something. So at the end of the day, yeah, I basically write fuck you songs. But I like to think that there's some humor in it. You know what I mean? I really saying I want to see you dead. Obviously, I got that idea from John Lennon. I'd rather see a dead little girl than to be with another man. And then the other part of "See You Dead" came from Frank Black. I need peace. I need peace. So I get so down. I got peace turned up so loud. So it's like those two, geniuses inspired, my song. And in the Helmet thing. So it's my, from, it comes from all different places. So.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is being such a prolific artist, because in addition to Helmet, as you mentioned, you have your orchestral stuff, which, by the way, is, as a diehard like fan of Two Steps from Hell and like all the Thomas Bergeson, who's one of my favorites. It's great to hear, somebody who's also into metal and orchestra. But like, in addition, you've played with like a lot of different bands, from Band of Susans to your solo work and all this. But like, when you like do like your orchestral stuff, or you're producing or making music for somebody else, is there still a part of your identity in it, or does it almost feel like in the end you're just, it's like, okay, this is what they want, let me adjust what I do to fit their desires?
Both. When I've done film work, has been extremely gratifying and extremely frustrating. The last film I did was called Painted Beauty, and the director is a dear friend of mine, and I absolutely 100% believe in him. And we have another movie coming up. Um, but the producers of that film were complete shitheads, and they screwed us over. And at the end of the day, when I quit the film, they butchered what we had done that was really good. Like, really, I never want to sound like anyone else. So when I'm playing with, David Bowie, he said to me, "You don't have to sound like Ronson or, anyone else." He said, "Do you in the spirit of the music," which was reassuring. Of course, I had such a short time and had to learn 30 songs in 2 weeks and then go play Wembley Stadium in front of like Mick Jagger and Princess Diana or whatever. So I was just learning the material and just trying to get parts. But so that was like being in like the greatest cover band in the history of the world for me. But if I'm playing, if I'm doing it, I just did a TV show thing, and I have a session Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week for an Austrian kind of horror series, 6-part horror series about a woman whose husband is murdered, and she discovers this human trafficking thing. And the director was shooting the music down, shooting it down, shooting it down. And the composer is a dear friend of mine who I do about 3 or 4 films a year with. In fact, I played guitar on Kissing Booth 1, 2, and 3, and sang on Kissing Booth 3. And so I'll do that kind of stuff. But with this piece, I'm really good at kind of sound sculpting and creating one of a kind sounds that nobody else could, including myself, could reproduce. Okay, record this now, because I don't know how I got it, and we're going to record it. So that's very unique to me when I'm a hired gun, so to speak. So I think if you want someone to mimic something else, or if you have another composer or songwriter in mind, I'm not the guy. I just can't do Bon Jovi. I don't. I don't like the music, and so I can't do it. And it's like this. That's not saying that the music's not good. It's just I personally, it doesn't inspire me. So I'm not going to try to learn to do that. I don't want to be someone else. I am at this point 61 years old, and I've been, I play jazz every morning when I wake up, and I still love jazz, and I still, listen to Ray Vaughan Williams on my flight home yesterday from producing this album, and I love classical music, and I love jazz, and I love Bob Marley, and I love Gang of Four, and I love, it's all. I just love good music. Duke Ellington. I listen to Duke Ellington at the airport in Austin, and it's so it's going to come out through my filter, obviously, with whatever technical facility I have. Hopefully I can express what I'm trying to express. And it's a lot of, Gary Hagberg, my great hero mentor, one of them, who's the one that told me I could actually be a musician back in 1981 or two. He was like, so you put on the lab coat, and you do your homework, and you practice and you study and you work, and then you forget about everything. You sit down and you just write and play, because it has to come ultimately from here. As Mozart said, music is brain, ear, and heart. All those things have to be involved for me. And if I just use this and this, and I throw this out, and because I'm trying to be something that somebody wants me to be, it's not going to work. It's going to be shit, and I'll be miserable. And so I've quit projects for that. If they're like, this is too out, like one guy was like, we need something freer, so I did something freer. This is too free. I'm like, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
So go get somebody that can do exactly what you want.
And that's always a great form of sincerity. I think that's why the fans relate to your music so much. There's you guys, you never portray something that you're not, and I think that has a great message for not just the punk world but the world of music. I think you tell people to be individual, be who you are, and don't sell yourself short. And you have music, and you have like the resume of exploration that shows that like it's still coming from you. You just express yourself through different languages.
Yeah. When we toured, Tommy Victor and Mike Kirkland from Prong worked when Helmet auditioned, and it came full circle. We took Prong on tour, and it was really great. I knew it would be a great tour, but Tommy and I, obviously spent time talking and hanging. He's like, man, you never ever sold out. You just stuck to your guns. You signed a major label deal, and you just stayed. And he's like, I know it was one of the greatest compliments anyone ever paid me. I was like, thank you, because I think he said when they signed a major label deal, he thought that they had to be something they didn't. It's like, no, they were a great band. Just be the great band that you are. And
he saw a lot of stuff being the front of house sound guy at CBGB's.
Absolutely, yeah.
The stories that he could tell, but I want to thank you so much for your time and for such a great and inspiring conversation. Everybody, we are here with Paige Hamilton of Helmet. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Alex. So great to meet you, man.